You are watching NetSoft IT Academy. 905 812 2923. Info at netsoftacademy.com. www.netsoftacademy.com.
So now let's start with scenario 3. Scenario 3 is a very simple scenario. In this scenario, we only have 3 virtual machines. One virtual machine to act as our domain controller, the other virtual machine to act as our Exchange server, and the third virtual machine to act as our workstation or your desktop or the user computer, whatever you want to call it. Now, let's break them down one at a time. This entire scenario is going to be on LAN. It is going to be locally connected. You don't need internet for this scenario. You don't need to have anything else connected for this scenario. You don't need a second NAT adapter like we did in the previous 2 scenarios. Here, we are going to do everything literally offline. That's number 1. Number 2, we need to understand that just by creating a domain controller and adding users and then adding an Exchange server will not automatically offload or create all the accounts on the Exchange server for Exchange services. You will need to actively go and create accounts for that. And adding an Exchange server is going to change your schema. It is going to change your schema. So you should be aware of that. And there is a lot of pre-preparation or prerequisite installation that is required to ensure that your installation goes as smoothly as possible. These are the few things here that will be happening. So first, let me start with the domain controller. Now, I have my virtual machines created, but nothing is installed on them. These are just Windows Server 2022 virtual machines. You can use 2019, but I would recommend against it. It is a good idea to use Windows Server 2022 or use the same things that I'm using to make sure that your life is a little bit easier overall. So I'll be starting by promoting the server to a domain controller first. Okay, here we go. So my password is password1350. All right. As you can see, it's a Windows Server 2022 standard evaluation. It's on a trial license. It's okay. Local server, Internet Protocol version 4, properties. Use the following IP address 172.16.10.10. 172.16.10.1 will be my gateway, and 172.16.10.10 will be my preferred DNS server. Now, the moment I set a static IP address from the normal NAT, it is automatically going to get disconnected from the internet. And that is a good thing for us. It is not a problem for me right now. Now, the next thing that I'll do, and you can see that the name of the machine and everything has been already sorted out. The next thing I'll do is go to dashboard, add roles and features. Next, next, next. Select Active Directory Domain Services, the second option here. Add the features. Now it will be next. I'm not adding anything else. It will be next all the way till the end. And install. Now this will take a second to install. Once it is installed, we will work on promoting the server to a domain controller status next. And you can see here that the installation is complete. So now I'm going to promote the server to a domain controller. I'm adding a new forest. My forest name here will be Nita, or let's change the name for this one. NetSoft Academy.com. NetSoftAcademy.com. Next. Now, these are all standard steps. You don't change anything here. You don't deviate. But it is important to make sure that you're getting all of this done correctly and you're not using snapshots or you're not using anything else, because there is obviously a risk, and a very big one, that you might end up breaking your installation before you can even get the Exchange server to install. And remember this, Exchange server is a little bit resource intensive. So you have to allocate your resources, you have to plan ahead. So if you don't have the, let us say you don't have the memory available to allocate to Exchange server, reduce the memory for the domain controller. The role of the domain controller is just to create users for us. We are not going to do anything else on the domain controller. But it is important to get everything done before you start before you do anything else. You can't start installation without planning first. And this requires a little bit of planning. Okay, next. This will take a second. This obviously takes a second. Now, one thing, you can use NetBIOS name or you can use FQD and whatever works for you. But whichever name you use, make sure that you remember the name or you are standardizing the name across the board. You don't have names that are randomly set up. Now, this is one of the reasons why even the device names have to be properly set. The computer name has to be properly set because when you're working with Exchange, you would like all of your computers to be able to connect to the Exchange server. You would not want things to just be like, okay, I want to connect, but I don't know where to connect. That is not a good look. All right, so now I'll be waiting for this domain controller to finish installation. Once it is installed, we'll create the user accounts. We'll finish the domain controller part here first. And once the domain controller part is done, then we'll move on to the Exchange server installation part. So at this point, my domain controller has been installed. You can see it is here. So let's quickly open the domain controller and double check a few things first. Now, in this scenario, keep this in mind that because we're using everything internally, we're using the internal LAN network to just as a reference point. We need to make sure that our IP addresses and everything are pointing properly. Now, while it is not a mandatory thing to do, I just recommend doing it because sometimes domain joining and connecting to services, those get affected when there is no proper DNS or loopback or something else gets in the way. So that's one of the things I'd like to do. So first thing, local server, Ethernet 0, you can see it's set to unidentified network. It should at least say our domain name here and 172.16.10.10. Okay, this is good. Okay, disable and enable. Now this clears out my entire domain controller part. Now I'll just need to add a few users here. So let's get started on creating the users. So my users are going to be named Paris Hilton and Megan Fox. So let me create a new OU here. My OU name is going to be Toronto. Add user, Megan Fox. Now, unlike the previous two scenarios wherein we were synchronizing, here there is no synchronization in effect, there is no internet connectivity at all. Everything is happening over the internal network. So, you might be thinking, why does Anand keep repeating internal network so many times? The idea is that we need to understand that we don't need internet for this. So if you add two NAT adapters or you're using the same virtual machine for doing this, I would highly recommend against it. It is a bad idea to use old infrastructure to try and mimic new infrastructure because it can lead to unknown or unidentifiable problems that could just end up doubling your work. Instead of that, just spend the extra 10 minutes setting up the new infrastructure, making sure that you have a short working infrastructure. Please, please, please do not, and I'm going to repeat this again, do not use the same old infrastructure for this. It will create issues. You might get lucky once, twice, thrice, but eventually your system or your infrastructure will collect a lot of stress, and under that accumulated stress, it will collapse. So please don't do it. Now I'm going to use the same password 1350, password 1350. I'm going to set password never expires, next, and finish. And one more user. This time the username will be Paris Hilton, P Hilton. Next. Password 1350, password 1350, and finish. Okay, so this is done. This is my domain controller section completely done now. So now I'll move towards my second virtual machine. that is the ncot mbxs01. Now, this server is going to act as my exchange server. Ideally, you should give more resources to this server because it is going to be the one that is going to work the most or run the most amount of services. Now, the easiest way to start is just domain join this machine first. That's the simplest way. This is not a domain controller, this is not anything. It's just a server. It's just a domain joined server. That's it. So first things first, I'll go to local server and you can see that the machine has been renamed. Everything is done here. IPv4, properties, and use the following IP address 172.16.10.20. 172.16.10.1 is my gateway, and my preferred DNS server is going to be 172.16.10.10. Okay, done. Click on work group here. Click on change. Select your domain. My domain name is netsoftakademy.com. Administrator and the password. Now, ideally, you don't even need to do this. You could just you could just say administrator at this. That is optional. I do it because it just gives me a peace of mind. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but mostly I recommend doing it. Okay, so now once the server restarts, we will log in as the enterprise admin or the NetSoft IT Academy, / administrator part, and then we will start with the prerequisite installation for Exchange server. And the server has restarted. I'm going to go to other user, log in as administrator. Now you can see that the moment I type in administrator, it goes to Nita MBXS01. So either I can do this, or I could just go for like this. Both of these work. I personally prefer the FQDN method because it's more like the email addresses that we use. So I enjoy using that method. It's a personal preference, guys. You can have your own choice. You can do whatever feels the most natural to you. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing that I do. While I don't really say that this too much, but it is a good idea to also double check a few things here. First things first, click on local server. Make sure that it is connected. The IP address is, you can see here, even if this goes into loopback, we are not really going to be concerned about it because the secondary the preferred DNS server would go to loopback. So let me show this to you. Properties. You can see this, it does nothing changes here. That's perfect. If anything, the alternate DNS server would go to the loopback, which is not a problem. Quite honestly, it's not a problem. All right, this is done. Now, one thing that you can see here immediately is that you don't get access to any of the Active Directory components, which is okay, it doesn't matter. This is not a domain controller server, we already know that. So next comes, this is the next important step. This is where we start Exchange server prerequisite installations. And there is a series and sequence of installations that will have to be completed on this server, logged in as the enterprise administrator. Now, let's quickly double check one thing on the ADDS before I move on and just start talking again. You go to users, under users and computers section, or the plugin or the window here, and click on enterprise admins and click on members. You can see that administrator here is the enterprise admin and we need this account. We are going to log in with this account. Okay, this is good. All right, so first things, go to PowerShell. And in the book, you would have a series of commands that is going to install certain Windows features. Now, for me, for my benefit, I have these commands right here. And I've also got the instructions here so that you know what I'm doing and so do I. So first, I'm going to run this entire big command here. This is installing Windows features. So it is installing the .NET framework features. It is installing remote procedure call over HTTP proxy, RSAT clustering command interface, clustering management, web management console, WS process. It's installing a whole bunch of web related web related features that we need for Exchange. Okay, let me go back here. Right now, it is a good idea to copy and paste this text on a notepad file so that you can work with any error that exists here. Now, this takes a few minutes to work, and it is important that you check for any typos or anything. So in my case, because it's a clean version, it will be, I most likely will not have an error, but even I could have an error. When while copying and pasting from the file directly, you might have a few issues with somewhere around here. Let me quickly go back. Somewhere like with these types of hyphens, you might have an issue with these types of hyphens here. Or sometimes it could get broken up, it could get, there might be a comma somewhere in the middle. It does happen. It is not a major problem. It is just something that you should watch out for. All right, so going back here, you can see that the installation is happening quickly. Now, one thing which I would also like to point out here is I'm running this virtual machine with roughly 2 GB of memory, which is a bad idea for me. Remember, it's a bad idea. So once I have to restart this computer, I'm going to increase the memory now that I know that it has to handle a certain amount of load. So if you're doing a standard installation, or you do when you're creating the VM, you're doing the normal one without going for the advanced one, the typical one, this is what the issue would look like. So you need to increase your RAM before you start doing all of this. Can you do it after? Absolutely you can. But is it something that you should watch out for? Absolutely yes. You should keep an eye out for these kinds of issues because you need to allocate your resources properly. Remember this, you need at least 8 GB of RAM for your Exchange server for all of your installations and all the other things to work properly. Now, I'm going to restart the computer here. It is ideally recommended that you restart, but if I don't want to restart, I could just move forward and it would just not be an issue until I have to install certain prerequisites again. This is only step one of prerequisites. There's another set of prerequisites that we need to install. Okay, so while it is restarting here, now I'll go to settings and I'm going to increase it to 8 GB. This is just so that I don't run into any issues. If you can't afford 8 GB, give 4 GB or give 6 GB. But give enough memory so that it can work efficiently. Please do not allocate like 2 GB memory and then think, why is it taking 3 hours for this installation to work? Because at 2 GB memory, it will take 3 hours. You might be thinking I'm joking, but even you will realize when you start doing the scenario on your own that it is a little bit time consuming and there are a lot of steps that you need to follow correctly. Now, this is where we move on to the next step of prerequisite installation here. The next step of prerequisite installation is we have an ISO file. We have an ISO file called Office 365 Hybrid Deployments. It will be a part of the resources folder that you get with this course, or wherever we're getting the resources from. It will be a part of that. So I'm going to associate that here. So I'll go to click on settings first, click on CD/DVD, click on browse. Now, traditionally, I have all of my ISOs here, but sometimes I also have to download the resources. So that is the ISO name, Microsoft 365 Hybrid Deployments ISO. Okay, open. I'm just going to open the folder here so that you can take a look exactly what is here. Now, one thing, you can see a few things here. I'm going to start the installation in certain order so that you can understand what exactly am I doing here. So first things, I'll start with Java, the JRE 8, version 8, update 341. The reason I'm starting with this is because it takes the longest to start and install. Longest because it is spooling up the resources in the background, nothing more. Next, I'm going to install Microsoft Visual C++ 2013. I agree to license terms and install. Now, since I'm logged in as the administrator, I don't really need to do anything other than that. It's okay. But if you are not logged in as the administrator, you would have to do this, right click, run as administrator, and it would work. But if you're not logged in as the administrator, your scenario is not going to work. Your deployment will fail. Mark my words. Now, the next thing I'm installing is the .NET Framework 4.8. On Windows Server 2022, you don't need it. It's already pre-installed, but it doesn't hurt to check. It doesn't hurt to check. You can see here, it's already installed here. So on Windows Server 2022, you don't need this. The next thing that you need is the Microsoft Unified Communications Managed API. Click on that. Now you can see that the Java just showed up here. Click on install. So in total, you're installing 4 things. First, the Visual C++ 2013. Second, the Microsoft Unified Communications Managed API. Third, the Java version 8 update 341 x64. And lastly, IIS URL rewrite module x64. These are the 4 things that you will have to install for prerequisites. As you can see here, my Java is installing. I'm waiting for the managed communications API to start. Yep. And yes, please do not try to do the installations when you are, let's say, when you're still running the big PowerShell command, the install Windows feature command. The reason being that the IIS URL rewrite module will not work if all of those features are not installed. And if it doesn't work, you might be stuck. You might not even realize it until you are installing the Exchange server, and then you realize that you're missing it. So now I'm going to run this part, last part here. I want to make sure that it says has been completed successfully. I don't want to see it as failed. All right, this is done. And my Java is also done. Now, at this point, it is recommended that you restart. So I am going to restart this computer here. Now, this is step 2 of, remember, this is still step 2 of prerequisite installation. We have installed all the necessary components on the server. We have installed all the secondary programs that are required for Exchange server running on the server. Let's move on to the third part, wherein we are extending our Active Directory schema to accommodate for Exchange. So to do that, we will first go to our domain controller again, Nita ADDS01. On this machine, I'm going to mount the Exchange Server 2019 CU14. CU stands for Cumulative Update 14 ISO. Browse, right here, Exchange Server 2019 CU14. Open, okay. So this is done. I mounted it. Now I'm not going to run the setup here. Do not run the setup here. We don't need to run the setup here. We just need one thing. We just need to see on which drive, the drive letter. So when I go to this PC, you can see the DVD drive D. I just need this D here. Okay, so let me quickly open up PowerShell again. Now there are 3 commands that we'll need to run here on this PowerShell. But first we need to navigate inside the D drive. Now comes the next part. So you see these commands here, run on domain controller. These are the commands. So the first command is for preparing our schema. The first command is to prepare our schema. And you run this command. this will take a few minutes because it is extending your schema. It is working on your schema. And you might, by the way, keep this in mind that if you do not copy and paste properly, or if there is any syntax error, you will see all of this working, but then it will in the end just say, hey, there's something went wrong, you'll have to fix it. So please be very careful when you're copying and pasting, and double check and use this video as the reference for that. Don't do it without just blindly. Please don't do that. So I'll wait for this to complete and then I'll run the second command after this. Yes, so while we are waiting for it, you can also see that it is running the Active Directory, extending the Active Directory schema, and you see this part here, this is the status. Now, let's put it like this, and you can see this here. And this happened mostly because I was playing around with the entire PowerShell window in here and there. So it's a good idea to not do it like I did and run the command again. You let it work, you give it some time, it does work. But you have to make sure you're not messing around with anything. You're not trying to multitask, you're not trying to run multiple commands at the same time, because it does create a little bit of chaos here. So I'll wait for this command to complete again, and then I'll show you the next command. Now you can see this here that after I moved this, I just did not touch it for a while, it completed the installation perfectly. Now let's copy the second command from here. Now remember that these commands are all in the material that is provided to you in the scenarios and the lab books and everything. And I'm not changing any commands here. I'm using the same exact commands. Now the organization name, you can keep NetSoft Academy or whatever domain name that you are using, but I would personally recommend keep the same name for uniformity so that it is easier for you to troubleshoot if you have to do it on your own, or it is easier for somebody else to troubleshoot when they know that you are using the names given in the book. So I'm going to copy this next command, which is going to prepare my Active Directory. Now moving on back here. Okay, enter. Now this will be a little bit of a quicker command, honestly. So I'll wait for this to complete. And once it is done, we'll copy and paste the third and final command. Now my second command has also been run successfully. Now if you read this point here, you will see that setup will prepare the organization for Exchange Server 2019 by using setup / or / prepare ID. No Exchange Server 2016 roles have been detected on this topology. After this operation, you will not be able to install any Exchange Server 2016 roles. Now, one thing that we need to understand is Exchange Server has evolved over the period. So Exchange Server 2010 or 2013 had multiple roles, or 2012, whichever, I think it's 2013, if I'm not wrong. Exchange Server 2013 had multiple roles. It had 5 roles in total. It had the mailbox role, it had the edge server role, it has a CAD, it had a cast role, not the eating one cast role, but a client access server role, CAS, and one for it was called, I think, if I'm not wrong, it was for used for text messages and those things. It had 5 roles in total, which got shrunk down, and there's a management role as well in the middle, which got shrunk down in 2016 to just have edge, mailbox, management, and client access service. Now, when we moved to 2019, Microsoft even removed the client access role. Now there's only 3 roles now. We have edge server, we have mailbox server, and we have the management server. These are the only 3 roles available. So by doing this, we are preventing any older Exchange server from being installed or being present in our entire environment. So now let me copy the last and final command. And run this command. Now, this command is the final step in the prerequisite installation for Exchange Server. Now, after this, we will start with Exchange Server installation on the Nita MBXS01 server. And that will be the final step, or that will be the last step of Exchange Server installation. Even that is going to take a little bit of time. Remember, patience is the key here. If you're not patient, you could end up with a infrastructure or a setup that could work that could not work. We don't want that. We want something that absolutely does work. So we want to do everything by the book, in order and properly, so that we do not end up with a broken server. All right. So all three roles are done. All three commands, everything is completed, everything is successful. Now I'll go back to my Nita MBXS01. Now remember, one of the things that I always mention is, because I don't like having to log in multiple times and in the middle of installations and everything, you go to start, you go to settings. This is on the Nita MBXS01 server, the mailbox server. Go to system, and under power and sleep, set the power to never. So it will never go, the screen never goes off. So you can always have your screen running and you can always see what exactly is going. Okay. So now all roles, everything is installed. Every command is done. We have done all the prerequisites. So now let's start with Exchange Server installation. The Exchange Server installation process is relatively very straightforward. You mount the Exchange Server 2019 CU14 ISO onto this VM here. So I go to settings, I go to CD/DVD SATA, click on browse. Now, remember I mentioned that I like all of my things in one place. This is one of the reasons why, so that I don't have to go hunting for where I have my resources set up. So this is my resources folder here. So this is my Exchange Server 2019 CU14 ISO open. Okay. And the moment autoplay starts, I click on autoplay and run setup.exe. Now, in your case, if the setup does not open, if the autoplay does not work, if the autoplay does not work at the moment, you can go to this PC, right click DVD drive D. If you don't see either the option to install or run program from your media or open autoplay, you only see the option of open. Click on open, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you will find the setup file. You can run the setup file from here. So this is just another way of running it. Now, first things here, do not check for updates right now. Next. Now, this process will take a few minutes. It needs to copy the files. You might think that, okay, it's happening very fast, but trust me, it takes time. So the copying part is done. Now the setup is initializing. It is preparing the necessary files before we can continue to the next step. Okay, next. I accept the license terms. We are going to go with the recommended option here. I'm not going to change anything. Next. Use recommended settings. Yes. Next. Now, remember I was talking about the roles being present here. So if I select mailbox, you automatically notice a few things here. The management role is also, the management tools role is already selected, and you can then choose to select automatically install Windows Server roles and features that are required to install Exchange Server. We don't need to here. For now, we don't need to. Next. Now you can see how much disk space this requires. This requires around 5.7 GB roughly. I'm just taking it in by 1000, not 1024. Okay. Next. Do I want to disable malware scanning? Ideally, no, but because we are testing, yes. Next. Now the prerequisites are being configured here and they're being analyzed. Now remember, if your laptop cannot or your desktop cannot handle this kind of load, it is a bad idea. Now you can see here that I have a warning. I don't have an error. I have a warning. There is a huge difference. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to click on install. And you can see that there are 13 steps in total. And you will take a little bit of time for all of these steps to complete. So you will have to wait for it. So we'll wait for it. And I'll show you when we are nearing completion. Now at this point, my setup has reached step 12 of 13, and that is finalizing the setup. Now, remember, this takes a little bit of time. For me, at this point of time, it has taken roughly around 30 minutes, but it could take more or less depending on your computer configuration, depending on how much RAM you have, depending on how much background services you're running. It depends on a lot of different things. So keep that in mind, and we'll wait for this installation to complete properly, and then we'll verify if the installation was successful or not. Now, at this point, you can see that my setup has completed. Everything is done. I can launch the Exchange Administration Center after finishing this, or I can just click on Finish. I'm going to click on Finish right now. All right. Then I go on Start, and right away you see a new thing here. Under Recently Added, you would see Exchange Management Shell. I'm going to open the Exchange Management Shell. Now, do you see this part here? Nita mbxs01.netsoftakademy.com. That is our Exchange server. That is our mailbox server here. And you can see that it is connecting. We want to make sure that this connecting process, this entire sequence completes. Otherwise, we'll not get any email connectivity, we'll not be able to log in. So I'll wait for it to complete. And when it says connected, that means that my services are running properly in the background. So we'll wait for it, It doesn't take this long generally, but in your case, if it takes a little bit longer than what it took me, it's completely fine. Just wait for it. And here you can see that it is now connected. So now my first command is going to be get dash mailbox server. Now this should say that Nita MBXS01 is my mailbox server. It has good availability and unrestricted. Perfect. Now I'm going to copy this part here. And I'm going to go on my browser Edge here. Now, again, remember, installing Google Chrome or not installing Google Chrome is a personal choice that you have to make. I generally go with Edge because it is completely offline here and I don't really want to download and do everything, add a NAT adapter and have everything exposed to the internet again. So I generally avoid doing it. But that is just my personal choice. You can, if you have the application file, the exe file, you can just run the exe file. A new tab, http /nita mbxs01 .netsoftakademy.com /ECP at the end. ECP stands for Exchange Control Panel, and that leads us to the Exchange Admin Center. Now here I'm going to log in with NetSoft Academy /administrator and the password, the same password that I use for the normal login account. Click on sign in. This will ask me to set the time zone and everything. You can set the time zone to whatever is more convenient or whatever you feel like. I generally go for Eastern time, US and Canada, Eastern time. Click on save. And see that it takes a second for all of these changes to work. And see that it's not connecting, it is not selecting that zone. So just refresh it a few times, it will work eventually. It's nothing out of the ordinary here. Or if not, you can just go for mountain time and click on save. You see, it's just going to be like this. It's not a problem. So I'll just resolve this and I'll let you know what exactly you have to do for this. So yes, this is how the interface looks like. Now, all I had to do was just go back and sign in again, and it worked. No issues there. So you can see by default, I have the administrator account here. Now, if I want to add new accounts, I can add accounts in two methods. I can either, right here, I just click on plus and use a mailbox, and I can browse for an existing user, or I can create a new user. Right now, I'm going to browse for existing users. So I click on browse. I select Megan Fox. Okay, save. And Megan Fox has a mailbox now. And same thing again I'll do for Paris Hilton as well. Browse, and I select Paris Hilton, and I click on save. So now both of my users that I created on my on-premises Active Directory have mailboxes. And this is the email address here. The mfox at netsoftacademy.com and philton at netsoftacademy.com, those are the email addresses. Now, at this point, we have completed the domain controller installation, creating users, installing prerequisites for Exchange Server, making sure that all the entire Active Directory is completely ready for the Exchange Server, and then we install the Exchange Server and we created mailboxes. Now, the last thing that we need to check, or the last thing that we need to do, is actually send emails. So for that, first, I'm going to navigate to my workstation. Now, again, remember, this is a workstation machine that is just configured. It is not, there's nothing else installed on it. I'm going to domain join this workstation machine, and then I'll send an email. I'll do the email in two methods. I'll log in as Megan Fox or Paris Hilton on the local application, the Outlook application locally, and second, on the browser, I'll log in as the other user and make sure that the email is flowing on this server. Okay. So first things first, let me log in. Now I'm quickly going to domain join this computer. The process is it's generally the same, so we don't really have to do too much here. ncpa.cpl, oh, ncpa, not ncap. So once this opens up, now here the IP address will be 172.16.10.30. 172.16.10.30. 172.16.10.1 is my gateway, and my preferred DNS server is 172.16.10.10. Okay, this is done. Start, settings, scroll all the way to the bottom, about, domain or work group, change, NetSoftAcademy.com, administrator, password 1350. Yep. Okay. Close. Restart now. And I'll just domain join. I've not installed anything here. Remember, I'm not installing anything on the workstation. The workstation, in most of the cases, is literally the last thing that we are going to do, because it is only to verify that our email flow is working as planned. Now, that is one thing. So I'm going to log in here as one of the users. So let me log in as mfox, as the user. And the password for mfox, password 1350. That is the second thing. You will notice this again, that the passwords are all managed by Active Directory. So in this entire scenario, our domain controller is doing the AAA for us. It is only doing the AAA. The Exchange server is handling only emails. It does not have anything to do with AAA. It is extracting the AAA information from the domain controller and allowing users to log in with their user credentials. So if I reset the password for a user, it does affect the Outlook or the Exchange application itself. So here, I'm logged in as Megan Fox. So I'm going to go to Outlook New here. Now, remember, insert, because this is one of those computers wherein we don't have any internet or anything else. So it could lead to some very strange and very weird behaviors. Remember, it is a possibility. In IT, you cannot exclude the possibility of random behaviors happening. So we just have to take it in our stride. We cannot just say, okay, hey, this is how it works. So you can see this here. Right now it is taking forever, but I'm okay with it. While waiting for this, I'll go to my Edge, start without my data, confirm and continue. Yes, confirm and start browsing. And on a new incognito tab, I'll paste the same Nita mbxs 01.netsoftacademy.com /OWA/. You can see that it says, oh, it's not supported. Do you want to go? I say continue to site. And you can see that it's saying, oh, you don't have the access, you're denied. That mostly happens because of this part. Now, it does happen. So in case this happens, I have an easier way for everyone to work with this. So right here, beyond the ECP, this is on my Exchange server. So I'm going to just copy this link here. We can see that it says HTTPS. I go OWA/, and you see this entire link here. I'll just be copying that link. I'll just be copying this link here. This link. Just this link. Now, remember, it is just me trying to cheat the system a little bit and trying to get a head start in. It's nothing other than that. I click on advanced here, continue, and you can see that I log in. Now, remember, it was just me using a small workaround solution. So, NetSoft Academy /P Hilton and password 1350. You can see that it is asking me to change my password now. Now for P Hilton, maybe when we are creating the user, we forgot to set the thing password never expires. Could be possible. But this is one of the reasons why you should always double check your passwords. So you can see right here. Okay, let me quickly retype my password. So instead of 1350, this time I'm going with only 135, just to make it a little bit different so that it doesn't create a new issue here. And let me log in again with my password 135. Now I'll have to choose my time zone again. I'll go for Eastern time. Click on save. And you can see this is my Outlook, or this is my Outlook on the web. It's also called OOW, Outlook on the web, or OWA, Outlook Web Access or Web App. Now this is one. Now you can see that the Outlook application is still pulling up because it requires the internet due to Microsoft's new conditions and everything. So it's okay, not a problem. It's okay. I click on new, and now I'm going to send a test email to Megan Fox. And I'm going to CC the email to administrator. Test email. Hello, this email is being sent to verify mail flow and to check receipt of email. Yeah, you can see that I have a few typos here and there, but to all receivers. Okay, wait, let's add one more thing. Please respond to verify reception of email. Thank you. Now I'm going to send the email, and very quickly you will notice that it is in my sent items. Perfect. That means that it has been sent. Now we just need to verify on Megan Fox's mailbox and the administrator's mailbox. So first, I'm going to sign out here, or I can click on open another mailbox. Oh, sorry, I'll have to sign out, not open another mailbox. And instead of P Hilton, I'm going to log in as mfox, and the password. And you can see that for Megan Fox, we actually set the setting properly, that the password never expires. Okay, and you can see that P. Hilton's email is here. So I click on reply all. So this email goes on the administrator as well. The last thing that we'll do is we'll go back to the MBXS01 server and we'll see that both the emails are being received here. It's mail flow. The proper term is mail flow. And send. So now this email has been sent to everyone. Now both, we know that for a fact that emails are being sent and received. Now let me go back to my MBXS01 here. And you can see that my inbox has 2 emails. And both the emails are showing up here. And that concludes our scenario in the sense that we know now how emails are being sent and received, and we can verify that the mail flow is working properly. So that is the end of the scenario here. Thank you.
Thank you for watching NetSoft IT Academy. 905-812-2923. Info@netsoftakademy.com. www.netsoftacademy.com.